Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chasing a Murderer. My name is Debbie, and today we are on part 91 of Life Beyond the Grave, which is attached to the Vallow case, also known as the Doomsday Mother. Today I'm going to do a mostly audio, trying to catch this series up because I just have so much information to share with you guys. At one point I was way ahead of everyone, and now I'm having trouble putting in all the information that's available now. But still, this is going to be interesting. We know that Chad's spending a lot less time at home with his wife and his children, and Lori hasn't been home in over 3 weeks. Not even to check on her son JJ, who is awful upset that his mom has just disappeared. It seems that Chad Daybell is friends with some pretty high status people that's attached to the preparing the people in end-day movements, and now Lori's working her way in. People like Julie Rowe, who would be considered one of them, is now being kind of cast to the side. Why is that? And Julie isn't liking them too much anyways. We do know that there's a few people that are going to try to, get Julie Rowe excommunicated. A lot of them being people that surround Lori Vallow. Because now Lori has gone from being a fan of these podcasts about end days to being part of it. So she went from a fan of Julie Rowe now to, well, this has become a competition. That's why I really feel about this. We have learned that Lori Vallow can become quite jealous, and in that case, she likes to destroy people or intimidate people at least. She likes to have the upper hand, especially with the women that are in contact with Chad Daybell. We'll go into more of that later. So Julie Rowe, she has a podcast on apostasy. And while many people like Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, the Preparing the People group, are very familiar with Mike Straw, Julie Rowe claims she is not. However, her clients tell her about this guy often. And oftentimes they compare Julie and Mike as being similar. According to Julie, it's around this time that the Lord tells her to go listen to a couple of Mike's podcasts just to skim over them. We learned that the Preparing the People conference, well, they're starting to take off pretty well. And on February 15th and 16th, they have a lot of speakers that are in the same circle as Chad Daybell. One of those speakers being Hector Sosa. During the night, they are attending these things they call firesides, where they are able to get a little bit more personal with their visions and what they believe the future holds. And so here's an example of the people standing in line to attend these events. Charles finally is able to get his insurance policy under the protection he thinks it needs to be, because his wife, Lori, for some reason, is trying to change the beneficiary or keep him from changing the beneficiary. Charles is definitely not surprised by all this. This is something he kind of is trying to be one step ahead, but is always one step behind of Lori. He's trying his best to communicate with her family members, but most of them do not believe him. They just do not believe that Lori's capable of doing such things. In fact, they believe that whatever Lori's getting into is kind of just like a stage. She'll possibly get past it. Julie Rowe is appearing on a few other people's podcasts, one of them being called Steve, where they talk about spiritual guides and how these spiritual guides are keeping her close to God. Julie is able to read people's energy, and they often spend a lot of their sessions working on family members, themselves, trying to get rid of illnesses, bad omens, and make connection with heaven. Julie has a few spies out in this community that are telling her about some of the things, Chad is doing, especially with the pre-mortal lives. Julie has dabbled in this a bit herself, but she's definitely telling people that are supporters of her, these other people doing these pre-mortal ranking systems, you need to beware of them because they're not the real deal. We'll go more into that in just a little bit. And Kay will later have something to say about what Charles is going through with his life insurance. She said that Charles would approach her in late February about his life insurance policy, that he wanted to name Kay as the beneficiary. She said, quote, because he knew I would do things the way he asked, and that his boys, all three of them, would be taken care of in a way that Charles asked me to do so, end quote. On another interview with reporter Justin Lum, it states Charles did change the beneficiary on the policy to Kay. She said when she spoke with Charles a few days later, she told him the whole incident with the password, quote, just made me scared what Lori is going to do next, end quote. So at this point, Charles is not passed away, so you get an idea that both Kay and Charles are suspicious of what Lori will do or capable of doing. And Kay said that she believed in her brother's concern during this time. Quote, she told people that I'd spoken with that Charles is going to be dead any day, end quote. So who could those people be that she's speaking with? Most likely could be Brandon or Adam. So I put a few of those documents up I couldn't find for the last video up this time, where he describes a little more detail of how he believes that his soon-to-be ex-wife, Lori, is fraudulently placing passwords onto his insurance policy. And so you have a glimpse that Kay does have an idea of what's going on during this time, and she's thinking, that Lori might be capable of doing something quite heinous. Charles, after reaching out to Lori's family over and over, at this point, he sounds like he's just wanting to be done with Lori and her entire family. He's frustrated because her parents, of all people, are not listening to his cries, that their daughter is sick and that she needs help. And I'm not certain at this point in February, from the middle to the end of February, how close or apart he is with Adam Cox, Lori's brother. Something you must understand is Adam Cox, no matter how hard he's trying to do the right thing here, he's having trouble dealing with the fact that his sister has always been evil. She's always had these tendencies of murder. And she's always had this lack of connection and bond. She was good at pretending and taking the steps, as you'll learn through this series. I mean, she's able to tell people what they want to hear. She knows this is deceiving, but her purpose is to make sure that she doesn't disappoint anyone into seeing the person she really is. If I were to make a movie on Lori, this is exactly, I would base it off this series. A lot of people want to talk to Lori just to see what she has to say. And I say, I've thought about that. And then knowing who Lori is, why? There's no sense in talking to her because she never tells the truth, not once. She will never admit to herself who she really is. Why would she admit to me, you, her mother, or anyone else who she is? There was one family member that I believe it took her a while to wake up, but she was the smartest wake up, and that would be her sister Summer. Once she realizes that Lori is lying to her, she puts two and two together and says, you know what? This whole entire time you manipulated me, and you knew you were manipulating me, and I was here being loyal and loving. But during this part, Summer, well, she's very supportive of Lori, and she believes her. Summer is realizing, Lori has this different idea of who she is, especially religiously. And Adam is starting to think that Charles might be right about Lori. Maybe his sister needs help. And in the future, we'll go ahead and mention it now, Adam will say, we need to help Lori. And he will reach out to his parents and say, we really do need to consider the fact that Lori needs help. But then you have Melanie Boudreaux, who was jumping on her train hard and true. You got Alex Cox, her own brother. He's on this train. And this train is headed towards disaster. And JJ and Tylee, well, they're tied to the front of the train. Alex Cox, how is he jumping on this train? Well, he's flattered by these little ranking systems that Chad is teasing them with. And Lori is the one delivering the information. And at this point, more people start to question, Lori's beliefs, her support during this time. The more that you question it, the more she will shut you out, and you will not be part of her life. And there are more and more dark scores every single day. Now they're developing a system of trustworthiness, ratings. And this is an attempt to control the people around them. Many of them are told that you're being translated as we speak, and you will carry special powers given to you from God Himself. And now this ranking system is extending outside of the immediate family to even Charles' ex-wife and their children. Charles' first wife is deemed dark. Lori had already placed some very serious accusations against these boys earlier, and Cole, her son, is dark. Zach and Joshua, well, so far they are light. But you will learn in this ranking system, it can slip and change in a blink of an eye. By February 28th, Melanie Gibb has another Time to Warrior Up podcast come out titled Feel the Fire, which is titled on her book. In that podcast, they will talk about their fiery spirit and the conviction of the power of God has to change us. Again, one of the main topics being the dysfunctional family challenges. According to Melanie Gibbs, she too has a autistic child, just like Lori. And they will also talk about, the challenges of raising autistic children. While Melanie Gibbs' podcast subjects seem to kind of stick to her book and kind of a different path, Lori's, her total interest is getting into this pre-existence, past lives, and she continues to be consumed by the temple. According to a good friend, Christina, she said Lori was the one who had written down their lives and connections, not Chad. In fact, Christina says she had no idea how Lori got all this information. Remember, Christina and a girl by the name of Nicole, they run into Lori at the temple quite a few times. And what do Christina and Nicole have in common? Well, they're very open-minded, and they are also believers of the end days. In fact, Christina and Nicole say that they see themselves creating some sort of community, though she doesn't elaborate the detail of what this community is. Most of us can assume she's referring to the gathering of the 144,000 in the second coming of Jesus Christ, but that's speculation. They really want to help build this community, and they want to do this through studying the scriptures, through prayer. Christina will say later that she didn't really believe in everything Lori was saying to her. But Lori was really trying to get this little group to believe that she was a leader. And she would do this by helping them, paying for trips. Her mother would suggest that Lori's doing this out of kindness of her heart, but that's not true. Her mother wants to believe that, and Lori tried to make her believe that, but that's not the truth. Christina said that they even met at Alex Cox's house at one point. So I have to guess it's somewhere in this timeline. There, they actually start talking about scriptures and moving into the fact that Charles was possessed by a zombie. Lori even told her that her daughter was possessed by dark spirits. And for Christina, she said, well, she thought this was kind of weird. There are other gatherings with these women. People like Zelima and Julie, not Julie Rowe. At least I don't think so. I haven't had time to look into Julie. We hear that several of these women, they're doing these prayers and they begin to see dragons. And it just seems that they're merging energy work and religion. So they're not seeing God as often, but seem more like mystical creatures. According to Melanie Gibb, after the 58 days that Lori goes missing, she'll go in and out of the kids' lives. And how did Melanie and the rest of this group see Chad and Lori? Well, we've seen this clip before, but I want to share it once again. According to Melanie Gibb, they see themselves as the headquarters, the leaders of the 144,000. According to Melanie, around this time as well, she says that Alex Cox don't really know about everything that they're teaching and sharing, but that doesn't make sense because we learned he had already been paying people to read Chad Daybell's books. So maybe she's referring to the zombies. I don't know. Here's that clip with Nate Eaton.
Talk about all kinds of stuff, sometimes spiritual stuff, sometimes non-spiritual stuff. It was, in the beginning, it was just more casual because, Alex at this point didn't know anything about that until later on.
Would you say that Chad and Lori were kind of leaders, or at least they were working their way to be leaders of a group, of other people that might follow their teachings?
So ultimately, yes. They did believe that they were the head of the 144,000. So, that's scriptural. That word is scriptural, right? But they believed that was what their assignment was. So I guess in some sense, you could say that they were trying to find people that would fit that group.
So people involved in this group, well, there's several people. You have Christina, Nicole. I think April Raymond says that she's even included in this group's texting circle. Maybe even a girl by the name of Angeline Law. I'm still behind on my research, guys, and I've done a lot. I can tell you, however, that several of these girls will meet up with Lori in Hawaii. And poor Tylee, well, she's no longer going to public school. She is signed up supposedly for online school. So I'm guessing this will be where she just earns her GED. According to Christina, she also is aware that Lori left Tylee with Alex Cox and has abandoned JJ and Charles. What's really strange, and as much as I would love to study Melanie Gibb, her background wasn't too much important to me here. We do know that Melanie Gibb is struggling in her marriage, and we'll go into those personal details maybe one day when I have time to go into that background. Right now, let's focus on the fact that Lori Vallow is convinced that most of her friends and herself are of a divine counsel. And a lot of these people that are witnesses, we won't admit it, but they're meeting Lori at the temple and they're doing things in the temple they're not supposed to. Even, doing their own little ordinances and things like that. Now, we will progress into self-made divine portals of creation, according to Melanie Gibb, are most likely created through prayer. These portals are used for several things that only Melanie Gibb and them could possibly know exactly, but aren't being too forth with it. But we do know that before they decide anything of what they want to do in the future when it comes to relationships, just life, it's in general, people's fate of the future, well, they head to the temple, they refer to the portals, and get divine counseling. Their revelations are all that matter when it comes to decisions. They are the primer to what they're about to paint for the world to see. It's as if whatever they're doing, they believe 100% they have 100 disregard of the true authority in heaven and here on earth. I know that Chad was interested in DNC 132:19, principles and power and dominations of all heights and depths. Ye shall inherit thrones, and so forth. The meaning being, ye shall inherit in exaltation. Sorry, guys. They are privileged to see the visions of eternity, just like Isaiah, just like Ezekiel and Paul, even like Joseph Smith. Chad and Lori, well, they are teaching that it's a privilege to have communion with the General Assembly of the Church of the Firstborn. And for now, they're having to use the church's temples. But this is speculation, but I feel this is true speculation. I believe that they had a goal to build their own temple. This was Lori's main goal. A lot of people are like, what was she after? What could Chad give her? A property to put a temple on, and a means to get it. And I think that she was planning on doing whatever she had to do in order to obtain that temple, including sacrifice her entire family. That is my personal thoughts. For prosecutors, they say it's for power, greed, just the normal things. I also believe that they had an interest in atonement that we don't understand, possibly even blood atonement. One thing's for certain, I do believe that Lori and Chad were wanting to combine church and state. I think when you hear the 7 things that they were preparing for, this included this land, the temple, the laws, the combination of law and state, and there would not be any election to do so. Lori especially was using the mask, something similar to Nephi, that they are going to lead people away from wickedness, and that they would treat the enemies of Jesus Christ as true enemies. They would restore the Gospels. They would translate through their false teachings. In the book of Alma, the afterlife, all mankind should be saved at the last day, and that they need not fear nor tremble. They shall lift their heads and rejoice, for the Lord had created all men, and had also redeemed all men. And in this end, all men should have eternal life. Alma 1:4. Things like where Jesus ministered among the Nephites, he prophesies that the latter days, the gospel in its fullness, would go to the Gentiles. And in that book, they described the role of preparing the house of Israel and assured them that this blessing would remain as long as they were faithful. They would receive word from the Father himself, they command them, and then they would take those commandments and give it upon the people and inherit this land for New Israel. It's also said that they had many prophets, great revelations, and for years had a near perfect society. Several of these prophets were receiving lengthy and personal visits from the resurrected Lord. But this Nephi story, I'm not going to be able to go into a lot of it because it's a pretty lengthy story. Just know that in time, these people allowed wisdom to replace God's revelation, greed to replace love. Ultimately, this would lead to their fall. So I probably didn't explain that very well, guys, and that's because I'm skipping and hopping here trying to just get the series done. And this is the story at the Nephites. So I think when you look into this case, you'll find that a lot of your clues, a lot of tips, they will come from a lot of doctrines. For Lori believes, just like in the Nephi story, that many of the people have become super wicked. In this world, there is a huge spiritual decline, and we are smothered in corruption, especially in our government. And all of these types of people and these types of things, they're pushing away God's essence. Remember opposite day. In Nephi, they say that secret societies work to or for greater power and riches, and this led to greater and greater wickedness. So this is something that you see happening with Lori and Chad and the people surrounding them. This secret society building, creating these laws no one's ever heard before, and convincing people that they are the true messengers of God, that anyone else that's not them, they're just dark. So this is what these people that are surrounding them, this is what they're believing, this is how they're thinking. And Lori truly believes that Satan is just one step behind her, and that he has focused all his energy on her, just like Job. In the book of Job, nobody ever knew exactly what she meant by this, but now I do. And we've mentioned Job, where one of God's most faithful, successful servants, he was rich, had a good family, everything was perfect. And then the devil made a bet with him. If he took that away, if God took Job's stuff away, then would Job continue to be a loyal servant of God, in which he did, and then God give him all his stuff back. But anyways, this is what Lori believes. She thinks she's being tested. That's not what she's believed. This is what she's making up. She's making it seem that's what her life is. Let's say it correctly. But she's telling the world something, more like along the lines that the devil's after me. He's destroying my life. I'm going to share another clip with Melanie Gibb talking to Nate Eaton in an interview that kind of explains how her idea of how Lori was seeing Satan.
There's a lot of bizarre, incidents. Did you ever think, what is going on here? How can there be this much drama in one person?
It was a lot of drama, and I would ask them, like, why does these things keep happening to you? Because I have never been around so much drama in my life. Yeah. I'm kind of a chill person, and so it just seemed like there was one drama after another drama, and it never ended. And so I just thought, wow, this person, I used to say to her, why is everybody in your life turning into zombies? Like, why is everybody after you? Like, why? I don't understand. And she would say, well, it's because, Satan really hates me, and I'm because of my exaltation on the level that I'm exalted to, they're coming straight after me.
So anyone that would disagree with her or cause her any sort of problem would become a zombie?
Pretty much. Or either considered to be dark. They're a little bit different, but that's another discussion.
Yeah.
This makes more sense as to why Lori will say that her daughter Tylee, her own daughter, is being disruptive of her mission. That Charles is interfering with her mission. And that JJ, later on, his... we'll talk about that later. This great mother is now aggravated with her children because they are getting in her way, it seems. And this would be before Charles had passed away. And Lori seems to not understand the purpose of children. The purpose of children, you bring them into this world not to gain money or power or missions, but to be a good mother that sacrifices everything for their children, to have a perfect life in their adulthood. And there's more talk that Tylee, April Raymond witnessed it as well. She's dark. A lot of it has to do with the fact that Melanie says that Tylee doesn't want to babysit JJ so much anymore. And this seemed to be the turning point for Lori as to when Tylee goes from light to dark. So that's just so selfish and hard to believe that a mother could do that. So Lori believes that she's a priestess, a woman leader of the LDS, meant to bring more to this earthly lifetime than she has, well, at least for this probation. And that she had learned in her past lives that she was a warrior, and she wants to continue to be a warrior. I thought this was very important because as a fighter, she wouldn't be quiet and subdued. very important words and word choices. And the fact that Tylee's body is now a vessel for evil, and whoever's driving that body in the future here, she will say needs to be destroyed. Somewhere in this early spring, Lori is starting to get the notion that she should be over all the evil spirits in this entire world. And it begins somewhere between December and March of 2019. And let me tell you guys, though Lori's having some problems with Tylee, though we don't know the details on it. And I'm hoping that Adam, he's doing a new podcast, will share those details if he knows them. But Tylee, as a teenager, of course, teenagers are challenges for the parents. That's just, we were challenges for our parents. And during this time, no matter what happens between Tylee and her mother, Tylee is her mother's biggest supporter. She loves her mother. At least that's what it seems like. But as I started studying, I started to wonder if she was smart enough to figure out, her mother has some problems. And, well, if she went against them, that's going to be scary for her. I do think that Tylee does realize that her mother is having some type of issue during this time. And Tylee will do whatever it takes to help her mother get through it or even cover up things. So I'm going to go ahead and end it about here. What we have learned is Lori sets a target. She pulls that bow back, pulls the arrow back, and won't stop until she hits the dead center. And we know that Lori has set a target and a goal, a major goal that is very exciting to her at this point in her life. I believe it that she thinks she's going to build this temple and a community around that temple. So you can come up with your own ideas based off the solid facts that I do share. I want to say thank you to our Patreons. Without you, I would not be doing as well as I am. And thank you very much to all the people that have liked, subbed, and been supportive. Please don't forget to share one of our missing faces today. And if you would like to help support us, you can head over to Chasing a Murderer Patreon and donate what you can afford. Lord knows things have gotten quite tough for a lot of people. Sending my blessings. Love you guys, and I'll see you guys soon.